Stephanie Gets Framed is the 16th episode of the 4th season of Full House. This is directed by Zwick, and as always there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts, and my notes are grouped by parts of the main narrative, and in general I really enjoyed this. It starts off quite sweetly with Michelle cleaning her teeth, and then Michelle's part of the episode or the story revolves around the fact that DJ gives her piggy bank. And DJ teaches Michelle to ask people to feed her piggy, which is the cutest thing ever. And we have this fabulous moment where she's shaking the piggy bank, and then she starts kind of shaking herself in rhythm with the piggy bank. And it's just absolutely adorable. It's a nice little subplot in the episode. We then have two other parts of the episode, one with Jessie and one with, of course, Stephanie. Jessie has to pick a best man. And I was quite surprised, actually, by how quickly he came up with a solution. Or at least he came up with an answer. I feel like it would have been more interesting if he'd maybe asked Danny and Joey to pitch why they want to be the best man, making things a little bit more fascinating, as long as we ultimately came to the same conclusion. Because originally he'd asked Joey to be his best man and Danny to be a head usher. And then Danny is clearly unhappy about this. He's trying to pretend it's not a big deal, but obviously he's unhappy with this. And Jessie realises that there's no reason why he can't have two best men. And it was the best possible outcome. But I do think they could have done something a little bit more interesting with this, maybe in a different episode, making it the main narrative. I think it could have been quite fascinating. But what we got was absolutely fine. Then we come to Stephanie. Stephanie has a note sent home from school. She needs her eyes tested because she's having to put the paper up close to her face to be able to read it. She doesn't want to get her eyes tested because she's concerned that she'll need glasses. And I do vaguely remember that needing glasses could result in bullying when I was a child. And I'm wondering if that's still the case now. I feel like glasses have so much become a fashion accessory in a lot of ways that I'd like to think that if young children need glasses nowadays, it wouldn't be so big a deal, but I have no idea. But she does need glasses, and she doesn't like the way she looks in them. She doesn't want to wear them. And then we have a character who actually means nothing to me, but it seems like a pretty big deal from what I can gather, and this is Steve Urkel. He's played by Jaleel White. The character is actually from Family Matters. And honestly, if I'd thought that the character was just created for this episode, let's say I had no internet and no way to Google the character or the relevance of the character, it would have seemed very, very bizarre. A very interesting choice indeed. But I guess at the time, if people were watching Family Matters, then yeah, I guess it seems like it would have been quite a big deal. Maybe I should watch Family Matters. If you recommend it, let me know. And Steve Urkel is a very interesting character. I do like him. I think he's a fascinating character, but it does seem a bit strange without kind of the context of where the character is from. And he wears glasses, and he gives Stephanie this really brilliant talk, and he gives her a good bit of advice. He says, make them laugh with you before they laugh at you. And in general, I think this could be a good idea. I don't like Stephanie's teacher though, because Stephanie does this. One kid asks her, hey, you got glasses, can I see them? Nobody actually teased her in this, which I think is really important. And Stephanie decides that that's the opportunity to whip out the fake comic glasses that she got from Joey's comic kit, and she temporarily becomes the class clown and allows people to laugh with her. And all her teacher does, instead of realising, like any good teacher would, that Stephanie is trying to take the attention away from her real glasses by making people laugh with her, Stephanie got into trouble and she had to write lines that said, I will not disrupt the class. What a terrible teacher. What an absolutely appalling teacher for not realising that Stephanie was feeling very awkward and uncomfortable and embarrassed, and she was doing something to ease those feelings, and instead of helping her realise that she didn't need to feel that way, and just allowing Stephanie that brief moment, it's not like Stephanie was taking up hours of class time. Instead of doing that, she punished Stephanie. And I think she's a terrible, terrible teacher. What an awful human being. But thankfully, we have Joy, who was there for Stephanie afterwards, and he made her look in the mirror so that she could actually realise that actually she's still the same person. And Joey said something that I thought was great, and I love this quote. And he says, "You saw what you were afraid of rather than what was really there." And I like that idea of seeing what we are afraid of, because I feel like that's quite true. If we think something is going to go a certain way, it's kind of self-fulfilling in a way. And Stephanie worried that she'd look horrendous, so that's all she's willing to see, because she's not willing to look past the fact that her fear might be unfounded. But Joey really helped there, and it was a really lovely moment. So I think there are some really strong takeaways from this, particularly if you are in Stephanie's position, but also if you're the teacher in that classroom. Don't be an idiot. Don't punish somebody for doing the best they can to avoid feeling uncomfortable and vulnerable. I'm not saying she should have let Stephanie get away with it for hours and hours, but it was just a brief moment where all the teacher needed to say was, "Right, settle down, very funny," and that's it. The class would have calmed down, but instead she punished Stephanie. She doesn't deserve to teach. Thankfully, she's fictitious. She's not a real teacher. So I did enjoy this episode. The character of Steve Urkel technically doesn't mean anything to me, but I can see why that would be quite a great thing at the time. And in general, it's not a bad episode. Stephanie gets framed. Definitely has some really strong points.